let every nation know, whether it wishes us well or ill, that we shall pay any price, bear any burden, meet any hardship, support any friend, oppose any foe, to assure the survival and the success.
What up, what up? This is your boy Rob Clark welcoming you to the 22 November Network. Get ready for another exciting edition of the Lone Gunman Podcast featuring me. That's right, your boy Rob Clark coming at you. Stay tuned. Be right there. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. This is the Lone Gunman Podcast, episode number 53. It is a special edition. I was driving down Highway 66 the other day, and I saw this guy with a guitar strapped on his back, with his thumb out and wanting to ride. So I pulled over, and guess who I found? You've been wanting him. You've been clamoring for him. You've been wondering where he's at. You've been wondering what he's doing. I got him. So people, strap in. It's going to be a bumpy ride. Enjoy the show. What's up, everybody? This is your boy Rob Clark on the Lone Gunman Podcast with a special edition. That's right, folks. It's another special edition this week, and it wouldn't be special unless I had a very, very special guest for you. And people have been clamoring and wondering about this fella. Where is he? What's he doing? Well, let me tell you, folks. He's on the goddamn Lone Gunman Podcast today. What's up, Doug?
Hello. Hey, Rob. What's going on, man?
I'll just doing my thing, brother, doing my thing. What is up?
No, man. Dude, you have been fourth gear rock and roll, drop of a hat, man. You've been slamming, throwing and going.
Hey, you know, it's a second breath, and hopefully you get yours real soon.
Yeah, well, the big news is we got new tires on the official Dallas Action convertible Tuesday. That's the big news of the Dallas Action right now.
Well, that's always good to be riding safe, my brother.
It's good feeling to be reshod, there's no doubt. But yeah, I just been busy. That's like I say, that was the whole thing. And hopefully next couple of weeks, we'll have a new show up. Got to get lined out. That's agreed. We just got to find time to get together, and we're going to see if we can get this thing back on track. For sure. How are you?
Well, I know that is good news for everybody out there listening, because if I had a nickel for everybody that asked me where the hell Doug Campbell is, I'd be a rich son of a bitch.
It's for an entirely different reason, but I've been basically doing the same thing, hunched over a notebook, and that's basically what I've been doing, and probably will be for a while. But now everything's cool, everything rock and roll, man, rock and roll on my side.
And the plans are that you will be back, right?
Oh, well, I never, it wasn't like, or nothing like that. It was just, I was simply, like I said, I had too much, I didn't have room in my head as much, and still probably won't, to try to do a once-a-week thing. But yeah, I just had to go take care of some crap, pretty much.
Well, I think everybody that looks into this case at all on a regular basis knows the feeling of, sometimes shit, man, you just get burned out a little bit and you just got to step away from it for a little while and come back when you're ready,
Yeah, in my case, I had an opportunity come along that a professional opportunity kind of thing that I sort of had to jump on. I really couldn't say no, so I did, and going to be working on that a while, but we'll have more free time than I thought. So,
cool. Well, that's good news for the JFK grassroots community.
Still reading about, still thinking about this crap, for sure.
Well, that's good. That's good news for everybody. And I'll tell you, and we're going to be talking about a certain individual today by the name of Thomas Beckham. And I know we've touched on him a little bit before and his associations, but we are going to get into a little bit more deeper into Mr. Thomas Beckham because he's one of those guys that you just can't look past,
Well, yeah, before we do, something occurred to me yesterday that I wanted to ask you about today. Can I do that? Can I ask you something else?
Yeah.
Can I totally throw you a curveball, dude? I'm sorry.
Throw it.
Okay. And I think this is something that we can all relate to, kind of. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to bring this up to Rob on the Lone Gun. But I found myself in a conversation with a guy who was, he wasn't a lone nutter, but, he was kind of skeptical, not real knowledgeable about the subject, about the assassination, but, he was kind of inquisitive, a steady but an intelligent guy, you know what I mean?
Right. He had a lone nutter haircut, right?
Right. He was just like, really, there's something to all that, and he actually, pretty smart guy. He actually says to me, okay, give me an oh shit moment. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, a piece of information that'll make me go, oh shit.
Right.
And I thought, wow, that's weird. So I went with the, right off the bat, the 7.65 Mauser, Roger Craig, the Boone & Weitzman affidavits versus the Kirkham.
Right.
And he did. He kind of went, oh, wow. They signed them. I said, yeah. So, and our conversation got, a little further off, and we got around to Oswald. And he says, and like I said, the guy asked really intelligent questions.
Right.
He said, well, what made him such the perfect guy to set up? And it was at that moment, it was like the floodgates opened, and the information came out that there was a log jam. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where do you even, for somebody that's not well versed in the case, for people like us in our community, it was like my brain wanted to go, why? Because of everything.
Yeah, everything that dude did, whether knowingly or unwittingly, made him the perfect patsy.
Yeah, but, there's so many reasons. I mean, you can go, there's this book called Harvey and Lee, but, who's going to introduce a newbie to a book that's, 1,100 pages? And, I was just wondering, I guess, has that ever happened to you where you found yourself, in a conversation with somebody inquisitive who's not really judgmental on the subject, but you don't have a monopoly on their time?
Right.
Like that question, what made him the perfect guy to set up, is the way he put it, or the perfect patsy? Well, suddenly, it was like my mind, because of what we know in the community, well, I only got 4 or 5 minutes of this guy's time. Where do you begin? Where do you start?
Right.
Has that ever happened to you?
Yeah. And now that you mention it, there's a lot of different things that go in that particular scenario. A lot of what ifs and depending ons. But if you got a limited amount of time to talk to somebody and you're trying to explain it to them, you have to just tell them that you're dealing with a kid growing up without a father. You got not doing well in school. You got him joining the Marines. You got a lot of people have their fingerprints on this kid. And not to mention the fact that he was sent to Russia as a defector, which they.
Well, see, that's where I started.
Yeah.
I kind of went, sort of condensed version. Recruited into the ONI as a young Marine, sent over there as a false defector, spy kind of thing, and came back. His cover's intact, and was used as a dangle for pro-Castro, kind of thing. I kind of went there, and I said he sort of had, his cover was right. His cover story was right. The legend was right, and then I went, well, and he's like, well, what do you do at that without giving somebody a YouTube link or recommending a book, really hook them. You know what I mean? Because in our minds, we want to go so many places. We
right.
think you can automatically go, well, Harvey and Lee, look at the thing where he's in the hospital with gonorrhea and he's on the boat to, Taiwan or Thailand at the same time.
Yeah,
you can't really go there.
You got to take baby steps. Yeah, you got to take baby steps with people like that, and to throw them into Harvey and Lee off the bat, they're going to be like, "What the hell?" Because even people familiar with the case will go, "What the hell?" when they read Harvey and Lee. It's hard to understand, it's hard to comprehend, unless you really, really, really know things. And I think the original plan was likely to blame the assassination on Cuba. In order to, how should I say this? In order to fulfill, the certain people's agendas. There are certain people that wanted a war with Cuba, and they weren't happy with JFK buddying up with Khrushchev, and they weren't happy with the way that he was treating Castro and basically not doing anything. With this communist, 60 miles off of our shore, and letting him do his thing. And I think that's part of the reason that Oswald was the perfect patsy, because you have his pro-Castro background, whether it's a legend or not, it's there.
And that's kind of where I went with the guy. I said, he came back from with this guy I was talking to, a guy named Matt. I said, and when he came back, his cover was kind of intact. He was never outed as a false defector. They just kind of planted him here and, passed these leaflets out. And he's like, well, what do you mean a dangle? And I said, well, they passed the leaflets out. Somebody else is kind of hanging around the corner, i.e. somebody like Thomas Beckham, paying attention to who takes the leaflets. And, if anybody sends in a card to the address going, I would like more info about the Fair Play for Cuba Committee, well, they go all in. And somebody like Bannister, they're automatically looking into these people as possible communists. And he's like, oh, yeah. And sometime around, I'm going to say mid-September, is when he was, I think, ultimately chosen sometime around mid-September. It was ultimately going to be him. But I kind of went that route like you were talking about with this guy, because and another example, I said, look at it this way. I said, modern day. I'm sorry if my voice sounds kind of, it's kind of strange. I've been using it a lot in the last 2 weeks, but I said, it's modern day. A guy from Nashville, which is where we were at, I said, he goes and now he leaves the Marines, goes home for 3 days, hops on a plane, goes to Syria, throws his passport on the desk and joins ISIS. Okay?
Right.
And I said, right. I said, now, a couple of years later, he turns Muslim, and he marries this Muslim chick, and they have a kid, and he suddenly changes his mind and decides he wants to come home.
Right.
And the guy goes to, what? I said, yeah, what do you think would happen when he steps off the plane? He said, AR-15. I said, that's exactly right. I said, but Lee Harvey Oswald called the State Department and went, I want to come home. And they said, okay, here's the cash. Pay us back when you can.
Right.
And he said, he said, holy shit. So he asked me for a holy shit moment. And so I kind of went the false defector route, right, and with the Cuban connection like you were talking about. And when I explained it to him like that, modern day ISIS, he kind of went, wow, so he got it at that point.
Right, and
so,
if that same guy were to come back and start handing out leaflets to support ISIS,
or if he had started, if he just started saying, I'm not anti-Muslim or anything, don't anybody get mad at me, but, the bottom line is that the guy goes to stand on the street corner and starts handing out leaflets about his corner mosque. Okay? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
then if they wanted to assassinate the president...
and a couple of months later, the same guy pops the president.
Yeah, exactly. He'd be the perfect patsy.
Well, let me tell you what, the B-52s and the B-2s wouldn't be flying this area fast enough. And that's what we're saying, folks. Boom, bang, right there. Modern day, what do you call that, analogy?
Yep. That's a beautiful analogy.
You know what, Rob? I think you and I, we have already laid down what you call the breathing analysis, the breathing redneck research analysis for the day. What do you think?
That's right. Hey, I like that analogy. It works and it fits, and it makes you think. For those who really haven't thought about it, hey, how screwed up the whole situation was.
It didn't occur to me until I was talking to him yesterday. Well, what if an ex-Marine joins ISIS, and there are, what's her name? Patricia. Do you know her name? What's her name? Patricia. She was a CIA Life magazine chick. Oh, everybody knows her name. I'm drawing a blank.
The one that wrote Marina's book?
The one that wrote the one about Marina and Lee.
Priscilla Johnson.
Yeah, say a guy joins ISIS and there are even write-ups in the New York Times about it. Yeah. And he wants to come home.
Yeah.
Don't lay in hell. Well, guess what, folks? Lee Oswald did. They let him.
Yeah, they let him come back and try to lead a normal life, supposedly. Would they let somebody that did that with ISIS? Probably not. Unless they had other plans.
They'd be in Guantanamo Bay, maybe.
Right, unless they needed him for a certain operation in the future. Possibly.
But anyway, that was I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get off topic on you. That just occurred to me to ask you about.
Well, you did mention Beckham, so it's all good. Peeking around the corner. But let's get into old Tommy a little bit here. And
okay, well, you know what I did? you and I talked about, okay, let's talk about Beckham. So I have his, I don't know if you guys called up. I bet you do. I bet you've got it called up on there on your laptop, because I called it up because you sent me the link. And you sent me the link months ago.
To his HSCA stuff?
I never read it. I never got around to it like you implored me to ask. But
what?
It is pre-interview, Thomas Beckham's pre-HSCA testimony interview.
Right.
The transcript.
Right, with Delsa and I can't remember the other guy's name right offhand.
Yeah, this AJ Delsa guy, who I'm sure we'll talk about. But
well, I got something interesting here that I came across in the Orleans Parish grand jury testimony of Fred Crispin. When he's asked, they're asking him about Thomas Beckham, and I'll read it a little bit for you here, okay? Okay, and it says, let's see. They were asking him, do you know this person? Do you know this person? Do you know that person? He's saying no. And then, let me see here. Okay, it says, and this was the first time you came to New Orleans. Yes. Where did you meet Beckham? He says, in the state of Washington. How did you come about meeting him? He says, I met him through another friend of mine, a man who operates a large secondhand store type of thing. I was there for books, and he introduced me to Tommy, and that is the first time I met him. It was a few months prior to coming down here. And he says, this was approximately in 66. Crispin says, yes, in the late spring of 66. This was the first time you initially met Beckham. Crispin says, yes. He says, now, when you were down here with Beckham in the late spring of 66, and Crispin says, I met him in the late spring of 66. I didn't come down here until October or November. Just about this time, just prior to Thanksgiving. Do you remember the name of the person who introduced you to Thomas Beckham? Crispin says, yes. His name was Harold Dahl. You remember that name, right? Yeah. And he says, you say he owns a, and then Crispin says, yeah.
Explain who Harold Dahl is. Explain that.
Okay, well, Harold Doyle or Harold Dahl, whatever you want to call him. This was the guy that was entrenched with Crispin at the Maury Island incident when supposedly Harold Dahl had a UFO sighting. And some slag was dropped, and he called his buddy Fred Crispin to come down and check everything out. And then Crispin got wrapped up in it. And it's just a little too weird to see that Harold Dahl actually supposedly introduced Beckham to Crispin not until the spring of 66.
Well, even at first, in Beckham, now I did read, not this file you sent me, but which is his interview in 77 with Delsa. But I did read a couple of years ago, I read Thomas Beckham's New Orleans grand jury testimony that he gave. And it was so weird and fascinating and eccentric and at times comical, and it was at the same time comical, weird, eccentric, combative, contrite, humble, crazy, insane.
Yeah,
His great that Beckham gave. And it was the first time, this was not 2, 3, 4 years ago, it was the first time I had ever heard of the guy. And it wasn't until, I met you and your research sort of found this other stuff. And I remember reading about Crispin, but I encourage anybody, and I think the website is History Matters. Is that correct?
Yeah.
It's got all that stuff archived, yes. Everybody go to historymatters.com, and they will have, you can download free PDF, it's legal, PDF files of all the New Orleans grand jury, garrison testimony, like Marina Oswald, Ruth May, everybody. It's amazing stuff. It's amazing. But this Beckham guy, in the thing you sent me, his pre-immunity interview,
right,
with Delson, which basically it was L.J. Delson was this 40-year homicide detective or 20-year homicide detective or whatever, veteran. I may be getting my figures mixed up, Rob. Like, what is something like 400 cleared cases or some such thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, that had been hired by the HSCA as an investigator. When Sprague still went.
Yeah, the guy was rock solid, man. I mean, he had no issues whatsoever. He could be, he could be trusted,
But this guy, when I hear him talk on the tapes of his interviews, I think and you tell me if I'm wrong, you think of Detective Silverwitz on NYPD Blue, built like a fire plug, tub, accident, 38 on your hip, that kind of homicide detective.
Yeah.
And this is an interview he did. It was a pre-immunity thing, like I say, it was here's what basically, Beckham, here's the thing. We're gonna interview you now and decide whether or not the information you have will warrant giving you immunity in front of the House Select Committee. But at the same time, you have immunity for whatever you tell me here. So he goes about talking about Friendly Christmas and the organization quite a bit.
Oh, yeah.
Quite a bit. And it all goes in a circle. And you and I can talk about it forever, but it comes around to this attorney who everybody in our community is familiar with, named G. Ray Gill.
Yep.
And you know about Gill and Chrisman. You can give us those details for sure, but when you go back to that History Matters website we were talking about, and you look at those PDF files of the grand jury testimony. The grand jury testimony, the lawyer's not allowed in the testimony room with the grand jury.
Right.
But you can have time. And I swear 75% of those people, if you read that transcript, Garrison or one of them will ask them a question. People like Beckham, like Chrisman, like Andrews, even Dean Andrews. Guess who the lawyer was representing all of these people sitting out in the lobby?
G. Ray Gill.
G. Ray Gill. When he testified, one of his associates was his lawyer. And one of the most amazing things to read is Garrison grilled him. And you can go right to this website and read it. Have you read it, Rob, Gill's testimony, where Garrison just tried and tried and tried to get out of him? Who is paying you to represent these people?
Yeah.
And it's the most amazing thing. But, everybody from, oh, Lord, I think he represented everybody but maybe Stahl in the Stahl trial, according to transcripts,
I know, it's crazy. Now, let me read you a little something else here that might drop your jaw a little bit concerning Chrisman.
All right, I'm ready, brother, I'm ready.
All right. Well, you know all about the whole bishops of New Orleans and all this and that. And to preface what I'm about to tell you, And what the lone nutters will throw up in your face is, of course, Beckham was a con man. And we acknowledge that, okay?
I'll say that again.
Beckham was a con man.
Yeah, understatement, brother. Understatement.
Yeah, and we acknowledge that he's a con man, but you know, when the irons are in the fire, even con men will tell the truth, you know, sometimes. But here, check this out. It's more of the Orleans Parish grand jury testimony of Fred Chrisman. He says, he also sent me a bishop's thing in this church. This was also released to the newspapers and here. I am not a practicing minister by any means, but all of a sudden I'm a bishop in this church, and it was a little embarrassing, and this is how this came about. And they ask him, do you know Reverend Brashears? And he says, no, I don't. And then they ask him, have you had any correspondence with him? And this is where it gets interesting. He says, not
okay,
that
wait, now what page? I've got this open, and I remember reading that. What page are you on? Can you tell me?
Page 12.
Page 12. Okay, 3, 4, 5. I'm almost there. If our patient dear listeners will be, let's see, page. All right, keep going. Do your thing.
Okay, now here's where it gets interesting. Okay, they ask him if he had any correspondence with Brashears. He says, not that I know of. I had a tremendous amount of people send me letters and that sort of thing. On top of that, Mr. Beckham got a hold of this and got himself a I don't even know what the hell that word is, a bishopric in Lincoln or Omaha, and he put together a whole series of secondhand shops and printed the whole thing up, and he had all types of material printed that had my name on it as a consultant and all this malarkey, and I had nothing to do with it. The same thing as when he was first subpoenaed by Mr. Garrison. He thought it was something great, and I couldn't see his point of view. He made a record. Of course, Beckham was a country and western singer, supposedly, and Chrisman was his manager.
Yeah, I've actually seen a copy of a record album.
Yeah.
Of a vinyl record that he put out under that other name that, if you listen to his grand jury testimony, Chrisman was helping him promote or some such nonsense. I don't know, but I'm sorry. Go ahead. I interrupted. Do your thing.
Well, it says he also made a record, an LP album, and you know what it was called, Doug?
What's that?
It was called Material Witness. And Chrisman goes on to say, he says, in this album, he mentions my name about 2 or 3 times, which is not only a little embarrassing, but he sent it to radio stations all over the area in which I live. And I'm on a radio station myself, and this is a little embarrassing once in a while to have fellows in the radio business say, well, Bishop, when are you going back to see Jim Garrison? This type of thing. And a man on the phone tells me he's a reporter from the Times-Picayune, and he says, what do you have to say about the subpoena that grand jury of Orleans Parish has issued for you? My first reaction was almost hysteria for me. For what? For now I am placed in the position in my own home state, for I'm a personality there radio-wise. Now, let me read that one more time for you. Have fellows in the radio business say, well, Bishop, when are you going back to see Jim Garrison? Now, Doug, I'm going to ask you, where have we heard the name Bishop applied to somebody before in this case?
Well, there's Colonel William Bishop, CIA case officer out of Miami. There is Maurice Bishop, who some allege was actually David Haley Phillips, who really needs no explanation. You're right.
Well, what if that man? What if that man was actually Fred Lee Chrisman? Would it make you look at things in a different light?
I tell you what, I don't have a photo comparison in front of me, okay? But I would love to see that one, I guess, standard, the one full frontal shot of Chrisman that you normally see. I guess you can Google it, Google image it, with a side-by-side comparison of the Messiana sketch. That would be interesting to look at. You are pretty good at mashing those things together. That would be kind of fun to look at, wouldn't it?
Well, I'll mash it together, and I will put it up on the website along with this podcast. That's for damn sure, because...
Well, there you go. How about that? I tell you, I got a lot out of this, and you should put, and this is the Reopen Kennedy case website. We should mention that. Richard Gilbride, I believe, his website, where this interview that you pointed out to me between Delsa and Beckham comes from. And when you were talking about, when are you going to go visit Garrison, that's something else that, when he talks about, when Beckham talks about Chrisman and the organization in this interview, he makes it very plain, I think, how, because his movements that he describes moving from place to place in his grand jury testimony, in the late 60s, is crazy. It makes no sense. I moved here to start a secondhand store, and then, I moved from Iowa to Washington, and I opened up a soup kitchen. And it's just, like I said before, nonsense. But then when you read this interview that he gave to Delsa, for the House Select Committee, he explained that Chrisman would call him and say,
"Go here."
Go here, and the money would show up, and that's how he outran the subpoenas. And then if you take that now, when you read that, and then it suddenly gives an entire, I think, a whole different context to when you read his New Orleans grand jury, the testimony at the beginning, when he's very combative. Garrison, he's really kind of sort of pissed off, like, yeah, you finally got me here, you MFers. Right. And then hindsight being 2020, you realize that Chrisman was going, okay, you need to go move to this little tiny town and go hide here and go be the bishop at this church. And all of these degrees and little cards that would show up and these little certifications as a minister in the, whatever you want to call it, church, which how many did Beckham claim to have at one point?
Oh my God. It's a ton, 20 or 30. I mean, I know that. That was kind of his cover. And then when you read between the lines of his grand jury testimony, and this is, again, 3 or 4 years ago when I read it like twice in a row because it was so fascinating, is, again, Jack Martin, who shows up a lot, later in this organization stuff. But if you read what this nonsense that Beckham's talking back then to Garrison, you realize that what they were doing, and it took me the second time reading it to realize what they were doing. Oh, wow. All over Louisiana, they would set up fake churches, all right, in these abandoned buildings in these neighborhoods. And Beckham, for 2 or 3 months, would be the quote-unquote pastor. Right.
It seemed like. And what he described is, they would bring in, enough food to, set up, to make sandwiches. You know what I mean? And say, hey, we're here to help the poor, and we're a church.
Yep.
And Beckham would kind of hang out and be sort of caretaker of the property, and he would describe how Martin or David Ferry or somebody would come by, once every couple of weeks and pick up the mail or come on a certain date or say, hey, there's a package coming. You know, and that what I read into it was a front for money. You know, it's basically what they were doing. And that was even before, you know, I met you, and then when you started explaining to me about the organization, I thought, oh, here we go. It makes a little sense.
Yeah, because one of Beckham's other duties was he would raise money. He would stick these cans in various businesses, you know, explain to them, hey, I'm with this church down the street. We're just trying to get started. Is it okay if I put this can here and ask for donations? And they'd set these cans up all over town, and then, you know, they come back through every week and empty these cans out to raise money.
That's exactly right. And you know what? A lot of, you even hear of people like Arcot Smith, and a lot of these organizations did that. There was even, I don't know what interview I read with Lauren Hall. I think it was an interview with him or maybe some testimony somewhere or something. Where they talked about that coffee, doing the same thing Beckham was doing, you know. And you are also pretty convinced, or at least have convinced me, that there's a pretty good chance that you can spot Beckham watching over Oswald as he passed out leaflets.
That's right. If you look at that video footage that was shot by the news people that day when Oswald was handing out leaflets, if you look in the background, there's a fellow back there in a suit with a pompadour hairstyle like Thomas Beckham used to wear, and he really goes out of his way to hide his face. He never looks at the camera. He always raises his hand up to protect his face. You do get a side profile, and damn if it don't look like him, man.
You're exactly right. It does, because it's this. It's not really a pompadour hairdo, but it's pompadour-ish.
Right.
And it for sure looks like it could be, you know, the same guy. You know, just he's got a little less hair in one. And the guy's kind of, you know, nattily dressed, you know. He's not, there's real no indication that was a bomb, you know what I mean? I'm trying to find, here we go. Sturgis, you ready for this? May I read something from Beckham's interview with, what's his name? It was Burris and Hill.
Yeah, go ahead.
May I read something from this interview to you, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And he's actually talking about churches. Now listen to this. All right, talking about, he says this, he goes, Lawrence Howard. Right. I've seen Lawrence Howard on maybe 7 or 8, 9 different occasions. Nelson, where? Beckham. One time at a church thing we had where guns were stored there at a church. But these guns were to be used for the revolution, the Cuban thing. They were packed inside crates. I learned from another guy in there, a big, tall, skinny man, big, tall guy. He asked about Howard, and they were taking the guns to Texas. Are you ready for the next one? Nah, I'm not done. But now we've got Lawrence Howard in one of Jack Martin's churches where guns are stored by Beckham. He's telling this to the HSCA. Now, you ready for this question?
Yes, sir.
Wasn't Lee Harvey Oswald a visitor at the church? It's an HSCA interview, ladies and gentlemen. Question. Wasn't Lee Harvey Oswald a visitor at that church? Beckham, yeah, Lee was. I knew Lee. I knew him real well. visitor at the church. As a matter of fact, quite a few times, she talked about this friend, the chief, that was always going to help him. And I know for a fact, and I believe in my heart, and I know she had no reason to lie. One time I just told him, if he didn't stop some of this crazy talk about the chief, he used to make me mad. She said the chief would take care of me. The chief will look out for me. I said, why don't you stop talking about this silly stuff, Lee? He said, no, the chief, which he told me was an FBI man. Told me it was Hoover. The chief was watching out for him. Lee, as a matter of fact, one day I met Lee, was up on the old International Trademark building one morning. Did you hear what I said, what he just said there, Rob? I met Lee at the old International Trademark building one morning. In this HCA interview, he was getting out some kind of free Cuba or something thing, and we went and had a Coke on Canal Street. Now, is that confirmation that photograph that you've shown me going, I think that's Beckham, is probably Beckham, because we got him telling Delta in transcript right here in an interview, I was down there one day.
Yeah, I mean, he puts himself right. Yeah.
Taking on now.
Yeah, he puts himself right there. I mean, it's corroboration.
It's corroboration. And listen to this. He's still talking about this. He says he was giving out some kind of free Cuba or something thing, and we went and had a Coke down there on Canal Street. And he told me that particular day he was just on television.
Yeah.
But in another meeting at the church, I met with Lee, and he talked about just getting back from Mexico, and he was going to be coming into some money. This was in September.
Yep.
But now, he said, I think this was in September. Lee, as far as we know, what is it, April 3rd, or it was October 3rd or 4th when he got back to Dallas. So he has got so Beckham's got something mixed up there, right?
Well, if he went at all,
Yeah. But he said, if I'm not mistaken, he talked about his trip to Mexico, and he'd be coming into some funds. All right, Burris, was anybody else present at this meeting? And Beckham says, oh, yeah, Arcadia Smith was at this meeting. All right, it's right here. And thank goodness for Richard Gilbride for putting this out there, and thank goodness for you for making people aware of it, because, that's kind of what we're trying to do, is get the important stuff out and cover up the BS, like, other people's, alleged mistresses and all this other nonsense. Here's people that, here's testimonies, sworn testimonies that are linking people like Lawrence Howard, to Beckham and Crispin and Oswald. There's a guy, Beckham, in print. And that's what really blew my mind about it, is because you told me 2 months ago, you need to read this, dude. And I went, I will. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And until we talked about me coming on the show, and I went, well, hey, I'll read this Beckham thing. And now my mind's kind of blown, now that I'm reading it and going, wait, dude, it's putting Oswald and Arcadia Smith and Jack Martin in the same meeting in a church in New Orleans. Holy shit.
Yeah, and if you got that right in front of you, I can't pull it up because we're on the phone right now, but if you got that pulled up, there's another holy shit moment later on in his testimony when he's actually talking about... What's that?
You talking about the meeting in Dallas?
Yeah, I'm talking about in G. Ray Gill's office, and then what he did and who he saw in Dallas.
Yeah. Now, Rob, you're going to have to talk for 10 seconds while I take a hit off a Mountain Dew. Okay, you ready to go?
No problem. I hope you people are enjoying this, because we are getting into Beckham and Crispin and exactly what the hell was going on here.
I want everybody to know before we continue that when we went to the conference together, they made us share a room, which was cool. You know, we didn't have a problem with that, but had we had two different rooms, we might have actually gotten some sleep. Because what you guys are listening to now went on until like 4:30 every morning we were there.
That's right.
And then at 7 we would get a phone call because we had somebody scheduled to talk to, and we're like, "Where you guys at?" So just because we just can't quit talking about it. But you're talking about, I digress. Excuse me. You're talking about the meeting that started in the aforementioned G. Radio's office and culminated in another meeting.
Yes.
And I do, sir, have that pulled up in front of me. Now, I have a question for you. I have not been able to he talks of two different meetings. The first one, I can't figure out a time frame for, but I'll read this, and this is right off the bat in this testimony, ladies and gentlemen. It was given to Delta and Burris on October 9th, 1977 at 11:15 a.m. at the Holiday Inn Medical, North State Street, Jackson, Mississippi.
Right.
And it starts out, we're blah, blah, blah. You're going to have a Kennedy. Don't worry, you tell me you shot Kennedy in the head. I can't do nothing about it. All I can do is go back and tell the committee, and they can decide. That kind of thing. So, but he talks about this meeting. He says, right, okay, the best place to start is a meeting I had in Algiers, Louisiana. As soon as you get off the ferry boat, it's in Orleans Parish. Sergio Smith, myself, G. Ray Gill, and a gentleman by the name of Vincent Marcello, along with a little bitty guy, Roswell Thompson, and a lady by the name of Burton. And they talked, there were some other present, and they talked about the, hang on, sorry. Talk amongst yourselves. I lost my place because I'm so smart.
That's all right. You'll find it.
All right, here we go. They talked about, I say we. They talked about the assassination of the president. There was also a lady, which I thought at the time was the wife of Sergio Arcacha. I could have been wrong. Now, he said that they went to Sturgis Smith's house first, and they had to follow behind, and they discussed at the time Kennedy's assassination, his situation, the Bay of Pigs, yada, yada, yada. Now, here we go. 2 weeks, there was another meeting. He was called to another meeting, same place. G. Radio's office, correct, Rob?
That's right.
All right, these are the words of Beckham to Nelson. I'd say 2 weeks prior to the assassination of the president, I delivered a package to a Mr. Howard. I went into G. Radio's office. I was told to go there by Mr. Ferry. We're talking about David Ferry, which I knew real well. In his office, they stuffed some documents, which were drawings, that of a map or plot. There was pictures of buildings and cars, and regular pictures, but they weren't glossy. They were put inside of an envelope, for which time G. Radio handed me. It was either $100 or $200, and told me that I was going to be taken to the airport. So they also tell him don't wear any kind of jewelry whatsoever. And in 1963, you didn't even need a driver's license or an ID to get on an airplane.
Yeah, you just had to get through the metal detector.
Nothing. Exactly. He wore no jewelry. They told him not to take any ID. Do not talk to one stewardess, create anything that would draw any attention to yourself whatsoever. Fly to Dallas. Deliver this package, which was an envelope inside of a magazine. Okay? So, he took a cab from the airport, and he went to a place called the Executive Inn, which, for the purposes of our narrative, if you look at Carlos Marcello's business holdings, he owned like 300 motels in the South. So if one were to trace the ownership of that joint, wow. But anyway, I digress. He met a Mr. Howard at the Executive Inn. Mr. Howard was upset, says Beckham, because when I got out of the cab, I was heading there, he tooted for me on his horn. A raggedy-looking car. I got in. He opened up the package, looked at me a couple of times, and I looked off in the other direction. He got real mad, and this $50, $50 it is. I don't know the exact words. I said, yes, it is. That's all he gave me. And he said, like hell, or something to that effect. But, like I said, he went, hang on. He says, I didn't, except for seeing it on Mr. Gill's desk and then shuffling it up, putting it inside. It was, all I knew was photographs of buildings, cars, and neatly drawn maps. Not like a regular city map, but it was diagrams, stuff on paper. And to this day, I don't know. Again, I think I took a cab back to the airport. I went back and discussed the fact that, and this is his word, this is not my butchering the language for once. Anyway, I went back and I discussed the fact that how upset Mr. Howard was. I discussed it with Roswell, which is A. Roswell Thompson, and also with Mr. Gill. They went on from there. And later on, now, and some people might say, well, it could have very well been Howard Hunt because of this, that JF82 animated, the one that looks like the guys from Hank Hill and South Park all did acid and did a JFK freaking animated movie. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
They'll tell you, well, it could be Howard Hunt. No. He named him later in the interview. It was Lawrence Howard. Now, Rob, I know you've, from listening to the Lone Gunman podcast, you have a longer time frame to do your show now. How much more time you got? You got time to let me to talk? We can talk about one more very cool story about Lawrence Howard.
Oh, most definitely.
We're going to wrap this up, and you know what story I'm talking about, and it's got to do with A.J. Nelson.
That's right. Go ahead.
Well, now, we should give credit where credit is due, where we heard the interview. And I don't want to say the F word or any of those other words on your show, so I'm going to let you, I will say I think it was episode 39, but I'm going to let you tell the world, and we talked about this on the Dallas Action previous, but we didn't talk about it very much. But you go ahead and tell where we heard the interview.
Right. I'm sorry. Go ahead. What was that? You broke up there a little bit, Doug.
No, I said I don't want to say the F word on your show. The F, it starts with FET. But I figured if we talk about the interview, we should give credit where credit is due, where you and I heard it.
Right. That would be on the Jim Fetzer's radio show, The Real Deal. I think him and Gary King interviewed Delsa, and that's probably the only good thing they've done this year.
Yeah, we just want to give credit where credit is due. Now, they didn't touch on this subject, or the subject of Lawrence Howard, much. I think I tried to isolate it in an MP3, but wasn't able to. And it was something like maybe just a minute and 31 seconds of this same detective being interviewed by Gary King, and Fetzer brought up the story about, Frank Sturgis trying to kill Marita Lorenz. You know, that story about what happened in 78 in New York, I think.
Yeah.
And he says, are you aware, Detective Delsa, that I became great friends with the New York homicide? It was really funny. It was kind of funny because he was kind of, well, you know, I become great friends with this New York homicide detective that interviewed Frank Sturgis in 1978, and Frank Sturgis told him off the record in an interview in a blah-blah-blah, you know, in the interrogation room or whatever, he admitted I fired the shot that hit him in the head, and my remark to him was, good shooting, Frank, and Delsa just shut him down. He goes, no, you're wrong. And, you know, our friend, well, I'm not going to say our friend, but he whose name I shall not mention on your show without, you know, express written permission. You can't. I won't say it on mine. He didn't know what to think because he was doing what he normally does, and that is, I believe this, therefore it is in stone.
Right.
And L.J. Delsa, this detective, just shuts his ass down cold and goes, no, I met the man that shot John Kennedy in the head. And this guy talks like, you know, again, like an old grizzled, you know, grew up in the Bronx, New York City detective. And it's amazing to listen to this guy speak. And Fetzer goes, excuse me? He goes, no, I met the man. I met the man that put the bullet in his head. His name was Lawrence Howard.
Yeah.
And he describes how tracing Warren Hall and Jerry Hemming led him to Lawrence Howard. And he describes asking to meet with Howard. Okay? And Howard, at the time, was in California, which was where this whole bunch of guys, you know, at one time settled. A lot of them did. And he describes in this interview, you know, Howard going uptown, meet you at the gas station. You know, and they met at this gas station, and Howard gets out of the truck, and he asks him, you know, you pack? The guy goes, no. And he says, lie him, and he shows him 245s that he's got hold. Okay? And he talks about how big he was, you know, just bare of a guy. And he goes, there was immediately, he said there was an air of seriousness to this man that was hard to explain, you know. And they actually went to his house, really nice house. He had a family. So they sat down next to his pool. And Lawrence Howard gave him a beer. You know, let's have a beer. And they sat around, and this was in the 70s. And he told them all about, you know, the Cuban War, and there were things he wouldn't answer, things he would. And they talked to him for a couple hours. And when he describes very vividly leaving and standing on one side of the car, he's about to get in the passenger side, and his partner's on the other side, and they're looking across the car, you know, eye to eye. And he tells his partner, he goes, holy shit. And his partner goes, what? He goes, you realize we just met the guy. We just met the guy that whacked Kennedy. This is the guy. And I know people go, oh, Bubbity Bob McWat. No. You're talking about the gut feeling of a man with hundreds of solved, indicted, convicted, sentenced homicides under his belt, saying, I met the guy.
Right.
You know, and it was even independent. It was later that he ran across, and he describes it in that same interview, that it was later that he ran across Beckham and learned what he learned about Howard Beckham. And it was at that point, according to him, they were learning too much. And Sprague was kicked out, Blakey was brought in, and you know the rest of the story. I'm just talking my head off, taking your show over, Rob. I'm so sorry.
Hey, it's all good. That's what you're here for, my friend. It's been a while since you got to talk about this stuff, and
I'm having such a damn. I haven't had a great conversation about the subject in a couple months with anybody, man. And who better to have it with than you? And Dan, you should have told me to take a breath or something.
It's all good. It's all good. But yeah, I'll put up links to a lot of the stuff we talk about today on the website, and so people can go check it out.
What do you think? I mean, what are your thoughts on the Beckham Lawrence Howard thing?
Well, it's to me, it definitely lends credence to various things and corroborates other things. When you're trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together, and it fits. You know what I'm saying? It fits.
Well, you're right, because and you and I have talked about it before. Privately, probably on my show, I know, and for sure privately more than once, that you've got to reconcile. If you can't reconcile Interpin with Mac Wallace, say, just for an example, all right, and you can't reconcile Mac Wallace with whatever was going on that summer in New Orleans. But suddenly with Beckham and Howard, you've got a solid link between these two.
Well, not only those two, you got a link between the anti-Castro Cubans.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, this one won't link up to either of these, but both of these will link up to two or three others.
Oh, most definitely. You got the anti-Castro Cubans, you got, Ferry and that whole bunch in New Orleans, and you got Dallas, you got the mercenaries, and they're all intertwined together.
And I think, I hope, anyway, because, everybody's got sort of their own avenues of interest, that they, personal sort of avenues of interest that they prefer to pursue. And I hope that, in your private time, when you're down and you're going, okay, I'm not looking for necessarily show material, but I hope this friendly Christmas fee organization, little avenue that you found that you're going down, kind of the way I started down this Army intelligence, whatever the hell it is. I hope you continue, because I think it's important. And until you brought the Thomas Beckham stuff, really to my attention, I didn't realize how important it could be, and I hope everybody else will also kind of look down that road too, because I think you're onto something, dude, with Chris, for sure.
Oh, no doubt. And it provides answers where before we only had questions, and it's an important connections, really. You try to link up different characters in this case, and you often run into a brick wall. And here we are, with Beckham being able to tie in Ferry, Marcello, G. Ray Gill, Clay Shaw, Lawrence Howard, Lee Oswald, we're tying them all in together. And, I'm sure, there's definitely...
And you can't keep it Bannister. You can, I hate to keep banging the same dead drum, but the whole, Texas plot milieu, you can't tie those people to the Cubans as much.
Right.
You know, I guess the closest link would be Walker, but I think that even though I think Walker's involved, I think he was probably key in my opinion. I don't think it was on behalf of private. It wouldn't have been on behalf of wealthy private citizens.
Right, which brings us back to the organization. Who in the hell was this organization? It could have been anybody, any number of people. It could be another. It could be another moniker for. And I know I'm throwing darts at a blank wall, but it could be another moniker for a Nazi thing. You know, for elders that escaped. You never know. Yeah, you don't know. I'd like to know more because, is it the same organization that how they helped Beckham run? Gave him a heads up. In 2 weeks, they're going to get an extradition order, and Wausau, Iowa, you need to move to this town. We got a rental house waiting. The cash is in a manila envelope at Western Union. Go. Right. They've got that kind of power, that kind of reach. And we know Crispin's connections on the West Coast. Are they the same kind of people that can make a call and go, hey, there's an extradition order for Warren Hall coming to the governor's desk. We need to make sure that he turns that down. Right. It could be a conglomeration of different different entities with representatives, from each one. I mean, who really, you could have a right wing representative, you could have a military representative, you could have somebody from the CIA, calling the shots for this organization, using Crispin as a trusted asset on the ground to coordinate things, and once again creating compartmentability, and that's the thing that's so curious about him to me is his connection to odd things that you would consider super stupid, top secret, even like before Kennedy, like the U.S., like the Murray Island thing. This. I tell you who. Who I almost think of when I think of this guy? When I'm talking about Chris. And again, what I've learned about him, I've learned since I met you. Really, I mean, I knew of him, but it's you going, hey, check this guy out. Do you remember the movie Pulp Fiction? Yeah. Do you remember the wolf? Mm-hmm. The character that drove the very, very, very expensive car, and he was a fixer. When there was a problem, they called the wolf. Right. The wolf flew in, the wolf fixed the problem. And when I steered back, it's kind of trying to see the forest instead of the trees and kind of look at the way it was like he was a fixer. He was a fixer for the stuff, the real bad shit, almost, it seemed like. Yeah, he controlled bad situations, Does that make any sense? I mean, or is it just, No, yeah. I mean, they trusted him, I guess, with, dealing with the Maury Island incident, and, I guess it went very well, and Lord knows what else he was in on, and they trusted him to oversee some things going on with the assassination and some of the players and what they were supposed to do. Now, you're leaving out, while we're talking about Crispin, and it's something that I know we brought up on my show, but it's something else very important that people need to know about him. And it's his connection to Clay Shaw. Okay, now, if Doug Campbell or Rob Clark were arrested for something pretty crazy, you know what I mean? Yeah. My first call is going to be to my attorney. Right. Yeah. Now, Clay Shaw was not, was it? No, he called Fred Chrisman.
Say that one more time.
He supposedly called Fred Chrisman with his first phone call after Garrison arrested him.
Doesn't it blow your mind?
Yeah. I mean, that screams to me, hey, dude, I need help.
The shit has hit the fan.
Yeah.
You know, it's like when, what was the guy's name, Sam Jackson's character in Pulp Fiction, you know, when he called, what's his name, and said, I got a big problem because I'm sending the wolf, well, that's all you had to say. You know, it's like, trying to call Fred. And, you know, I can't remember where I read it. I think I got it from, and this came up on a previous show of ours, and somebody was asking me, somebody sent me a message wanting to know where I got it. And I think I got it from a transcript of the Joan Mellon presentation from back a few years ago. Mm-hmm. But I can't tell you, look, you know, here's my citation. But do you remember me telling you that I read that when Oswald was arrested, we know about the Dean Andrews call from San Francisco from Shaw.
Right.
That he made a flight to Washington State and then flew to New Orleans.
Yep. Awful.
Washington State?
Yeah.
Yeah. Damn right.
Well, that's the, you know, I think that pretty much sums all this up, Doug. I mean, you know, you gotta start somewhere, and you gotta start putting these puzzle pieces together, and it feels pretty damn good when they fit. You know, a lot of people try to tear the shit down, but you know,
I think it's real cool how you know, crap I've been thinking about. You know, because I've stopped calling myself a researcher. I'm a student. You know, I'm a student. I'm not a researcher. I'm a student. So crap I've been studying for a couple of years, and stuff you've been studying, you know, once, you know, when you found Gilbride's testimony from Beckham, you know, and we've been doing this sort of independently. I've been on the Interpin Ward Hall Howard thing, and you've been on the New Orleans thing. Well, suddenly you found this, and there's a link.
Yeah.
There's a link, and it's a real link, I think.
Yeah, most definitely, and that's why I wanted you to read it, because I thought it was important, an important piece of the puzzle for you to find out, and people. I am
so glad I finally read that. I'm so glad you asked me to come on the show, and I think you asked me to come on the show, and then we were like, well, what are we going to talk about? And I was like, hey, what about if I read that Beckham thing you told me to read? Oh, yeah, didn't you get mad at me? You asshole, you haven't read that yet or something?
Yeah, I mean, damn, I sent that to you a long time ago.
Sorry, Rob.
That's all right. But hey, look, I'm going to put that up, a link to that, so everybody can go check it out for themselves and read it. It's important, people, to understand and read Beckham's testimony under the understanding that this was immunized testimony. That means he could say whatever he wanted to, and with no repercussions. And when he was in front of Jim Garrison's grand jury, that was not the case. And Fred Chrisman was still alive at that point, and also there in New Orleans. And, you know, he couldn't exactly say things like this then, because you had Ferry still alive, you had Clay Shaw still alive, you had Fred Chrisman still alive. But when he gave his testimony to the HSCA, everybody was dead.
Yep, that's exactly right, man. And I think that that's very important. When you know, if people do like you suggested, compare, you know, go to History Matters and fucking read his testimony from the 60s, but also, you know, when you read this the interview with Delsa, and and you think, well, those are two different people. I think you're exactly right, Rob. I think he was coached. I think that the insane nut job Rube thing was a put on. You know what I mean?
No doubt. And then he finally felt the relief that he could actually speak the truth and be done with it, to the HSCA now that everybody's dead. And it was 15 years ago.
You know what I think? I think's also very telling. I think now Beckham's still alive.
Yeah.
Okay, Beckham's still alive, and it I think I've always thought this. When you look at people like Beckham and you look at people like Jerry Hemming, where you're like Warren Hall, who died of a heart attack while fighting charges of running a meth ring for the CIA in the 80s or the 90s. Look at the ones who are A, still alive, or B, died of nice old age and natural causes. You've got Hemming got to die of natural causes at a ripe old age. Beckham's still alive at a ripe old age. William Seymour is still alive at a ripe old age. Howard died of natural causes. I think I don't think we read enough into, quite frankly, who's still alive.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that the conventional thinking is, if they knew anything, they should be dead.
Yeah, and let me put this out there too, Doug. Thomas Beckham actually wrote a book. Okay, and he actually wrote a book about his experiences in the 60s pertaining to the Kennedy assassination and his dealings with Chrisman. And I can't track the damn thing down anywhere. So if any listeners out there knows where I can get my hands on the book that Thomas...
Wow. Now, can I ask you how recent this thing was?
It's got to be 70s or 80s. And he...
Now, see, I do know, I have heard, or I remember hearing, you correct me if I'm wrong, or if you've heard different, that he's now some sort of substance abuse counselor in the Midwest somewhere.
Yeah, I think it's pretty damn close to you, as a matter of fact. It might even be Nashville.
Really?
Really.
Hey, I tell you what, after we get done, you and I need to talk about this, okay? This subject. But anyway, I know he speaks through his son.
Yep.
If it was written in the 70s or 80s, I wonder how trustworthy it would be. I bet you there'd be a lot of similar. If he were to tell you the story today, come clean kind of thing, I bet it'd be similar to the book in a lot of ways and way different from the book in a lot of ways.
Yeah, he's that old cat sitting in the corner who's laughing at everybody because he already told the truth and nobody wanted to hear it, and he probably feels like his story doesn't matter anymore, and probably mostly forgot about it. He's the man that time forgot, But like I said, he wrote the book with his last name spelled like this. This might make it a little easier to track down for people if they can. It's B-E, I think it's B-E, it's either C-K or K, apostrophe, H-M or H-A-M. He.
Really?
Yeah, he did it with a weird spelling. I don't know why. And I think his son is a dentist. So that might make him a little easier to track down there if you can, or we can Google him, or if anybody knows out there how to get in touch with Beckham or his son, let us know, and we'll send Doug on a mission.
If he's around here, and I haven't put the TDA decal on the side of the official Dallas Action convertible yet. So I'll stake, the wrap, the things you can buy for vehicles.
Yeah.
So I'll save that for later in case you guys need me to track the guy. Because, if I've got Badge Man on the side of my convertible, he's going to know something's up.
Yeah. All right, brother. I think that'll do it for
You know what?
today.
We can do this for another 5 hours. We
I
just
know.
probably need to just stop at some point, huh?
Yeah, unfortunately, I got to go to work, so.
I hear you, man. I'm going to try to eat something. I haven't eaten in like 22 hours or something like that. I don't know.
Well, hey, man, thanks for coming on the show, dude.
Man, thanks for having me.
Hey, no problem whatsoever. I know people have been dying to hear you, so here you are, and I hope that they enjoy it and know that you will be back sooner than later. And
hey, man, you know what? I hope that I'm back on your show sooner than later also.
well, you know you got an open invitation anytime you want, my brother.
And I'm ready. All you got to do is call me.
All right. Appreciate it, my friend. All right, people, this sumbitch is in the can, beamed up to the satellite, down directly to your ears. This is Rob Clark on the Lone Gunman Podcast, thanking my very, very special guest, host of the Dallas Action, Doug Campbell, for coming on the show. Until next time, people, peace.
And also make sure you tune in next week where I have special guest Russ LaChapelle coming back on the show to talk about Gerald Hill and some of the players around the Texas School Book Depository, the Tippit murder, and the Texas Theater. Tune in. You don't want to miss it. It's going to be a good one, people. Peace.